Well, it's March and it's a beautiful early spring day. But anyway, I'm raring to get going and it's so lovely, so here we go, let's start sowing. So what I've done is I've prepared the ground, I've dug it over, raked it over, made a nice fine soil surface, put a line out, and then using the edge of a hoe, we can use a bit of a stick, made a seed drill, a little shallow depression in the soil, probably about 3/4 of an inch deep. I haven't added any manure, any feed, because carrots, it's best not to do that, because carrots can sometimes fork, produce more than one root if the soil is too fertile. It's particularly moist at the moment, the soil, but you can just water the drill first. I like to do that sometimes. And sometimes it helps with germination, is if you put some compost, just some general multi-purpose compost, in the seed drill first, and then you can start sowing the seeds. Literally go along, sowing the row like this. There's two schools of thought with sowing carrots. Sometimes you can get very erratic germination, so it's best to, you can sow them a little bit thicker so that you make sure you get a good row. There's another school of thought that if you sow them a bit thinner, then you don't need to thin them out, remove the excess ones too much. Because if you're removing excess seedlings, sometimes it can attract the carrot fly, which causes a little grub to grow and actually tunnel into the roots. But usually I try and aim for 3 millimetres or so between the seeds. So I can ensure then I get a good even row. And once you've got to the end, it's just a case of just knocking the soil back over. Sometimes I'll actually pick up, if we get lumps, I actually pick it up and sprinkle it, so it's a nice fine covering. Gently tap it down, and then what I would do now is get a watering can with a fine rose and just go over the top just to nicely wet it. And every few days, especially if you get any dry weather in the spring, it's worth giving them a little bit of a watering. So now, having sown these, it could be a couple of weeks really before you see anything, and it depends on the time of year. If it's a bit warmer, you might see them in, say, 10 days, you might see them coming through, but maybe a couple of weeks at this time of year. If you've got a cloche over them, they may come through a little bit quicker. And then once they come through, you'll often find you'll get a clump of them growing. Just gradually, just very gently tease them out so you've got them nicely spaced, and as they grow, keep thinning them out so you've got a nice good gap between them, so you get a nice good sized root. We'll be checking in on these maybe in a month's time to see how they're growing. It's now mid-April. We sowed them very early actually, so they've been covered with cloches. If you're going to sow sort of as early as March, you do need to cover with cloches. They've come through quite nicely, and typically of carrots, we've not got an even row of germination. You can actually just sow some more seed. The good thing about that is then you'll get a succession of crops. So when these are ready to be harvested, the ones I've just sown now are going to be three or four weeks later. Put a few more seeds in and tap the soil back. The ones that have grown, you often find a bit too thickly sown in places. So now's a good time to just literally pinch out a couple. Just gently tease them out like so. So you leave a little bit of a gap between each seedling, and then let those grow on a bit more, and then they can actually be thinned out again. The other thing to do is just to knock off any weeds, which is what Tony's been doing. And then, as I say, it's mid-April, but it's been a bit of a cold start, so I think we might as well put the cloches back on. Oh, give them a little bit of water, yeah. Yeah, it's been a bit of a cold, dry start, hasn't it? So it's worth giving them a bit of a water.
Considering we sowed them quite early, they've done quite well, haven't they?
Yeah, really. And I think the cloches have helped. I mean, these can probably come off the end of the month, end of April. And there we go. So we'll have an update next month. early May, and we're having a look at a carrot crop that we sowed in around about March, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it was very early sowing, and we had to cover them with cloches.
Yeah, we put them under a cloche because it was quite early and we weren't really sure how well they do, but
no.
they took come on very well, haven't they?
They've done all right, actually. We did a little bit of a thinning, but I think now looking at them, they're quite thick in places. You can see quite a bunched up.
Yeah.
And if we leave them like this, they just won't produce very good roots. So we've actually got to thin them.
Okay, should we go for it?
Oh, let's have a go. Oh, look, we've got quite a nice little root.
Oh, that's not bad, is it?
Now those, don't put them on your compost bin. Just give them a wash under the tap and use them in the salad. So you need just a tiny gap between each plant. Don't go mad just to sort of space them out really thinly, because just in case there's any losses.
Yeah.
So, but just enough just to give them that growing room, and then leave them a bit longer, and then you may have to thin them out again. But as I say, certainly give them a wash and use them, because it's all good edible.
What you can see here, you know that it was a bit patchy, particularly this end. The ones that you sowed a bit later, I can see they're coming up now. They're a lot smaller than the rest. So,
that's right.
It's always good to do that, isn't it?
We've got some here. So the gaps we have, they are filling up the gaps.
Yeah.
So we're thinning them. It's because they're still very small, the roots. I suppose you could cover them with some fleece and crop protection mesh.
Yeah.
That could stop the carrot fly if there any around. So it's not too late to do that.
It's probably better to do that than not. I mean, there's rarely a time I've not had carrot fly. I haven't protected them. But they're coming on nicely. What do you reckon? July sometime?
Keep them thinning. By July, early to mid-July, we're going to have some roots, I think.
Yeah. Of course, you're not going to need to pick them all at once, so...
No, you can let them some grow on and be a bigger size.
Yeah.
So there we are, the carrot crop.
Right, Em, we're back on the carrot
Yes, remember we sowed these, must have been early, it was in March, which is very early for carrots.
Only one cold grey day.
It was, and I think you actually covered them with cloches to keep them, to protect them.
Yeah, just to protect them.
Just to tick them over, and
it took a long time to get going, understandably.
And we've had sort of various weather. We've had very dry, very wet, and then dry. So it'll be interesting to see how they've done.
Well, we've covered them with this insect netting, which hopefully is protected from carrot fly, but we never know until we
look.
So let's have a look.
So,
weeds.
It's exciting. Right.
Shall
we try a carrot? There's a carrot
promising,
there.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Shall we try that one?
Yeah.
Try and get, I don't know how deep they go.
Hey!
Not too bad. It's got a little bit of a friend, but I wasn't sure about this soil because I thought it might be a bit stony, so it hasn't kind of...
Well, that could explain why it's kind of stony soil causes them to fork like that sometimes. Try another one.
Shall we try another one? We have thinned them out a bit, so... Oh, I think I've caught that one a bit, but never mind.
Oh, that's a
nice
handsome carrot.
Right.
They're all right, those.
Any sign of carrot fly?
No sign of carrot fly.
That's good, isn't it?
What you look for is the little tunnels in there, and there aren't any.
I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but we did plant some spring onions as a kind of companion plant as well.
Which is supposed to help, Yeah. But I bet the covering them nearly the whole crop has just helped that, don't you?
Yeah, I would think so.
That's a really good carrots.
I mean, that one looks like it's going to seed, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've got one here that's about to flower.
This one doesn't look so good, does it?
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's still edible, but brilliant.
I would say that's hit a stone, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then what's happened is it's then shot
that way.
And the other way.
But that's what you get, unless your ground is really stone-free, you're going to get a bit of that.
Go for it. Wow.
Way better.
Look at those.
Not bad at all.
That shows how good thinning makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Good soil, no stones.
As opposed to that.
Haven't been thinned.
We think might have been sowed later anyway. There we go. carrots.